Good morning. I'm Cindy Striedelmeyer, and I'm hoping I will be of use to you on the facing bench today and won't get us too far out of order. Just a reminder that to help our Zoom people connect better, if you could turn off your phone or put it on airplane mode so we're not overloading our internet system here. Our first hymn is in Worship and Song. It's 166, Open My Eyes That I May See. Amanda, would you be available to lead? You can stand. Sorry.
In Spanish, oh. Yeah, great. I don't know if everyone else wants to do that.
Just that hymn would be a great invitation to center down, but I did bring a reading, and in some ways I'm glad that the message was Open My Eyes. This is a quote from Rabbi Michael Zedek in his new book, which I want to read the whole thing of, Taking Miracles Seriously, A Journey to Everyday Spirituality. What then might it mean if human beings are the image of God, The phrase indicates that we may experience a sacred dimension not only in ineffable moments like a star-filled sky or a single tear, but also, and maybe especially, in the person near you. The wonderful storyteller Harry Golden recalled, "When I was young, I asked my father, 'If you don't believe in God, why do you go to synagogue so regularly?' His father answered, 'Jews go to synagogue for all sorts of reasons. My friend Garfinkel, who is pious, goes to talk with God. I go to talk with Garfinkel.'" The Hebrew Bible insists that when you are really meeting with, talking to, caring about any and every Garfinkel, you are getting as close as possible to a genuine experience of God. That must be why the same Hebrew word translated as image, tselem, is the root for the modern Hebrew verb to take a photograph. If you'd like to see an image of God, take a look at the person next to you and take a close look at yourself. This is the point of a marvelous rabbinic legend which tells us that every human being is accompanied by a retinue of angels. With shofars blasting, those angels call out, "Make way for the image of God! Make way for the image of God!" Open our eyes. Open the eyes of the people around the world who may be having trouble seeing that image right now. It's time for what is labeled as community sharing. And I have noticed and been thinking about the fact that now it reads all across one line, announcements, comma, joys and concerns. Have you noticed that? I think it's because we finally recognized about ourselves that we think there's a fine line between those two. And we get them out of order, and it doesn't matter, we still need to know about all of those things. So what we do need to recognize is that the people on Zoom have a little bit more challenge getting through to us than, if we stand up and start waving. So we're going to let the people on Zoom go first and make whatever signal they have to do to share an announcement or a joy or a concern. So Zoom people.
Hello. This is Bill Smith. And I just wanted to remind everyone that on Saturday, November 11th, we're going to have a cleanup day at the church. Everybody's welcome to attend. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Anyone else on Zoom? I'm seeing all these muted buttons. I'm guessing not, unless you've seen anything in the chat. No? Okay. If you have an announcement or a joy or concern, be sure to stand and make yourself known. And when you get the mic, tell us your name. So here in the meeting house.
When I get it on. There we go. San Tarvin, and I am announcing some important schedule changes that are going to affect everybody. Not changing timing of anything, but changing when things occur. Next week, the 15th, middle of the month, is our unprogrammed, quote, Fifth Sunday meeting, because you'll hear in a minute, we're doing something else on Fifth Sunday. So next week we will have chat room at 9:30, but we will have unprogrammed meeting at 10:30, and I believe we don't usually have Zoom on unprogrammed days, do we? No. So there will be no Zoom next week. So see, it affects everybody. On the 29th, in the last Sunday of the month, which would normally be the unprogrammed, we will have the programmed meeting and Zoom, and at 9:30 we will have chat room. And at both of those, we will have guests from Right Sharing of World Resources, which is a very small Quaker organization that gives very small grants to wonderful little projects in Africa and India. And they have done a few other places. It depends on if they have somebody that can supervise it, because they want it done right. To start little business operations, buy sewing machines to start a sewing co-op or something like that. So we will have two people that are heavily involved with the right sharing stuff in India at chat room and in worship. And on the 22nd, there will not be a chat room because the children are taking over the room for their Halloween party and because I won't be here. And I didn't want to foist that off on a substitute. So, any questions about timing on these? Again, unprogrammed next week. Guest speakers on the 29th.
Hi, I'm Sue Walton, and I get to follow Anne's act in more ways than one. I'm the chair of Books and Brunch, and I put out the sign-up sheets. And please sign up to my special request from last week. We already have covered the waffles, including homemade yeast waffles are coming. We've got the pancakes and we've got the syrup, but I still need somebody to bring some chicken. Somebody's got to go visit the colonel or what? I do not want the man up there at the facing bench to go hungry, or the one beside me. No. So carnivores, please, it can be a casserole. Think out of the box. There's recipes, but I do need sign up. I want to know if this is something we want to continue or not. Thank you. And if you have questions, you can call me or you can email me. My email address is sue@sww, don't put one, and that'll go to Walmart, and you don't like Walmart, .com.
Anita Kamek, just a reminder that the meeting for business is next Sunday, but we will be back on Zoom. So not in person next Sunday. We'll be on Zoom, and it'll be at 7 p.m. Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Hello, I'm Uther. I regularly go to North Meadow Circle of Friends up in Indianapolis. I have a joy. I was staring out the window during our silent period here, looking at this wonderful tree out there, and it reminded me of antlers, and I thought immediately of the legend of Saint Hubert, who was a French hunter who was hunting one day, and he found a stag in the woods, and between its antlers was the sign of the cross, a big light streaming down on him. And I felt moved to say that because I find an incredible beauty in the presence of God and all nature. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, Joanne Gulley, and I have a list. This was left at the farmhouse. Okay, Nita Kirchhoff just claimed it. Second, I'm going to come up here because I've got my back to people. Second, to the folks that came to the farmhouse yesterday, thank you. That was delightful. It was great to have. I think we had 35 people. It was so fun. So fun. So now when you hear us talk about going to the farmhouse, you can envision where we are. Next thing, recipes. People had asked for soup recipes, so I have copies of each. The cheese soup, I did make it vegetarian, and you can do that as well. Third thing, I just got a text from my sister-in-law, Marilyn, this morning. My brother Jack is the one with Parkinson's. They live outside of Louisville. He had a fall on Friday night. I haven't even had a chance to tell Phil this. He had a fall on Friday night. She had to get the neighbor to help get him up. She said he's really failing. I am on fall break next week, and we are going to go see Jack. But if you would keep Jack and Marilyn in your thoughts, I would be grateful. Thank you, Jimmy.
Mary Dooley, the thanks goes to the Gulleys. That yesterday was wonderful. And though we may be creaking in this morning, it was just a beautiful day and such nice fellowship. I just wanted to share that I bought one of the new postage stamps about Chief Standing Bear and didn't know anything about him. So I looked him up. What an interesting story. And then I learned there is a film coming out this month. It's supposed to open on either the 19th or 20th. I got conflicting days. But it will be here in Plainfield for one, and it will be in Avon. The Killers of the Flower Moon. And it's about the Osage Native American community that he led. It's a long film. It's three and a half hours. The expert here. But I thought you might like to know about it, and just a heads up on it. But thank you again, Gulleys. Oh, sorry.
I lived in Oklahoma. I'm Sydney Anderson, near the Osage tribe area. And Oklahomans didn't talk about that until the book, The Killers of the Flower Moon, came out. Just like they didn't talk about the Tulsa race riots until the press got it. I just also wanted to thank friend Linda for being a good driver and driving me all the way around Iceland on a bucket list trip. We had a lovely time. Thank you.
Becky McClung. I have a couple updates, but first I don't want to miss the announcement. Just to remind everybody that the Women Rowing North Book Club is today at the Rise of Worship.
Hi, I'm Sarah Locaville, and for the last few days I've been in Richmond, Indiana at Friends United meeting general board meetings, and on Friday morning we heard a glowing, wonderful report about the Ramallah Friends School. It is in Ramallah, Palestine, which is on the occupied left bank, not in the Gaza Strip, but it is in Palestine, and they are doing so well. The kids are great. It's a large school. It's over 1,000 students from kindergarten, actually preschool. They just started this year, through high school. They have almost 100% graduation rate, and they send a large percentage of their graduates to colleges and universities all over the world. A lot of them come to the U.S. They go to England. They go everywhere. It's a great school. On Saturday morning, we were given the news about the strikes that Hamas had done on Israel. The Ramallah Friends School goes to school on Saturday morning, so the kids were already there. They were already in classes when the strikes occurred in the Gaza Strip. So, of course, they immediately sent the kids home, hoping that they could all get home, because some of them live in Israel, in East Jerusalem. They immediately closed all the borders, and I didn't hear that anybody didn't get home, but that was a concern. And they have staff who live in Israel. I just ask for prayers for the whole thing. Prayers for the Israelis who have been hurt, prayers for the Palestinians who have been hurt, prayers for the school, for the kids, the students, the parents, the staff, the teachers. it's a horrible situation, and I don't know a huge amount about it, but those who live in Ramallah, Palestine are really concerned that the violence is going to come to them too, because since they are the occupied area for Israel. So just hold all of them in your prayers, that somehow people see the light and quit using violence. And this attack was not totally unprovoked, because the Israelis have been attacking the Palestinians the whole time. I mean, it's not always full-scale warfare, but they come in and chop down their olive groves right when the olives are supposed to be harvested. They build fences around Palestinian areas and don't let the Israelis in, or don't let the Palestinians in. I mean, it's a whole back and forth thing, and it's just escalated to this point. So I just ask for your prayers, and particularly for the people associated with the school. It is a Christian Quaker school. They uphold Quaker principles and values, and anyhow, I just ask for prayer.
Anita, again, I just had one thing that I keep forgetting to say. I did ask Tom to send out an email last week, but there's still a few iris starts, and I think I think it's Lily of the Valley in bags at the dining room door out there. So if anybody wants some, they're there for the taking, and they should be fine. You know, the rhizomes and just, I guess, lilies or a bulb, the lily of the valley. Anyway, they're there for whoever wants some.
I hesitated to say anything because Sarah's speaking was so it's today and on all of our minds, but I did want to address the film that's coming out, Killers of the August Moon. My mother, some of you lucky people remember my mother, and she was raised in Fairfax, Oklahoma, which was the center of the activity that went on and is the subject of the book. And growing up, we knew all about it. And it was a tragic thing for the indigenous people of the area and the all of the citizens of the area. So if you have a chance to see the movie or read the book, it's a very nice book. Excuse me. It does remind me what Sarah was talking about. If we can find a way to get along with each other, and the idea that being different or a different race or a different tribe is somehow something to fight over, something to kill people over. Even though it was a long time ago, I think lessons can be learned from the history and maybe help what's going on today.
Let us resist the temptation to hate more strongly than we love. Let us resist our tendency to frighten and fear those whom we don't understand. Oh God, when we are encouraged to hate, when we are encouraged to fear, when we are encouraged to doubt our neighbor, place in us a spirit of love. For we confess, O God, our tendency to resort to the easy path of discord. Remove from us, O God, the tendency to label, to point the finger, to identify the enemy, and place in our hearts instead a passion for the embrace, the inclusion, the radical care of the other. We remember, O God, especially this morning, those children who suffer because adults can't get along. And we recognize our global responsibility to care for the most vulnerable among us. Help us, O God, see all of the world's people as our family, all of the world's children as our children and grandchildren. So that we might finally have what you know and what you call us to find, the peace that passeth understanding. Oh God, this is our hope this first day morning. Amen.
Community sharing. We're going to talk about community giving. Our offerings help the meeting meet the annual budget, and that budget, in addition to funding the administration of Fairfield, and it also supports community organizations such as Family Promise and Kunat Food Pantry. So think about how you can support the meeting. Donations can be placed here on the offering plates in the back where we are, or you can go online to learn about how you could mail a check or donate directly by PayPal or automatic payments from a bank account. Details you don't want to get from me, get them online. Also, we help the food pantries, Kunat, and also an effort to help families that our friends serve. So if you have brought things that can be placed in the baskets, we need some volunteers. I'm assuming Jimmy's going to volunteer. Any other volunteer to take the other basket around? Chris will. And we'll just gather those things up too to be given.
Well, I walked into town one day this week for lunch. Joanne is working, and it gets kind of lonely sometimes at our house, and I stave off the loneliness by going into town and eating lunch and seeing people. And So I did that one day this week. It was one of those beautiful, glorious early autumn days that we are graced with every now and then. Brilliant blue skies and pleasant temperatures, farm equipment passing by, the farmers on their way to the next field. Autumn in Indiana is an unrivaled gem. I hadn't made plans to meet anyone for lunch, but suspected I'd find someone to eat with if I went to Frank's place. Now, there is a system in Danville regarding restaurant participation and dining. The out-of-towners congregate at the Mayberry Cafe. We leave that for them. The drinkers imbibe their lunch at the Kickstand Bar, which has good food, but if I go there, my reputation, already precarious, is shot. The millennials eat at Two Guys Pizza, and those of us with more refined palates eat at Frank's Place. So I walked into Frank's and saw immediately the owner of the town's newspaper, Jerry Vornhold, and he waved me over to sit down at his table. Jerry has lived in Danville for about 20 years, so he's a relative newcomer, and but has learned a lot about the town, but doesn't know quite as much as I do since I've grown up there. So if he needs to know what someone is really like, if he needs to know what he calls the straight poop, he calls me to ask about them, and I, being an incurable gossip, tell him. Now, just a word for a moment about gossip. Some people think that gossip is a sin, but I don't. I see it as a compliment, as an indication of someone's interest in you. I've always been flattered when people gossip about me. The day we met for lunch, the publisher was preparing the obituaries for the week. Reading from a list he pulled from his pocket, he said, here's what we have this week, here's who has died, here are the obituaries we received from their families. Do these seem accurate? I knew several of the people on his list and was able to provide their backstory. You must remember that obituaries in a small town always mention how religious and faithful someone was, even if they weren't. And sure enough, he mentioned a man whose widow wanted it said that her husband was a sterling man of faith who attended church every Sunday, which was a big fat lie, since I knew he spent Sunday mornings recovering from Saturday nights, hungover with a headache. But in a small town, obituaries, and this is important if you live in a small town, you must always remember that obituaries are aspirational. They're aspirational. They brim with hope and praise, describing how we wish people had been. So when Jerry, the publisher, asked me if the man had actually been a person of deep faith, I said, I am inclined to trust his widow's assessment. Mostly because when I die, I want that same largesse extended to me. Philip Gulley was a sterling man of faith, a brilliant theologian with rugged good looks. But one of the names surprised me that was on there, and when he read her name, I was caught off guard. It was a woman I'd known since I was a child who I thought had died years ago. Have you ever had that happen? Someone dies and it surprises you because you thought they had died back in 1992. I said, she's just now dead? I thought she was dead back in the 90s, which was an honest mistake because this woman, for as long as I had known her, had exuded death had draped herself in decline and decay for as long as I had known her. One of these persons who dies before they're dead, who had a pulse, but not a presence, no quickening spirit. It's a problem in our world. Folks dying before they're dead. The life drained out of them long before their brain gets the message. I've been there. I know what that feels like. I remember when our boys were just little guys. I think Spencer was around 4 years old, which would have made Sam 1, which were fun ages for kids. And my church work was going well. I was pastoring over at Irvington Meeting on the east side. My first book was selling like crazy, and I just signed a contract to write 8 more. And I felt absolutely dead inside. Or how I imagined one might feel if they were dead. Everything was just flat and dark and lay over me like a weighted blanket, just smothering me. And I had read about depression, of course. Being in seminary, they make you read about that kind of stuff and learn all you can about it. So I had read about it, but you know how it is in life, that you never really know anything until it happens to you. And so I was learning about it, and I felt so embarrassed by it. Because outwardly my life was perfect. I had a wonderful spouse, healthy children, meaningful work, but every single day felt like a chore. And I would wake up in the morning and not even want to get out of bed. I would just lay there and pray that night would come so I could go back to sleep. I was alive, but not really. I was dying before I was dead. I went to see my doctor, not of my own volition. Joanne made me, who, thank God, didn't tell me to cheer up or pray more or that everything would work out all right. And instead, he prescribed an antidepressant. And a few weeks later, the veil lifted for me. But I have since learned that pills are not enough. I've tried this with diabetes too. That if I just take the pill, I can still have coconut cream pie. It doesn't work that way. And antidepressants are the same. You start with the pill, but then there are other things you do. I remember the doctor telling me about it. I said to him, I suppose I'll have to take a happy pill. And he said, there is no such thing as a happy pill. He said, this pill will chase away the black dog that's been following you around, but happiness is up to you. You must create a life that brings you joy. Hearing that did not make me happy. I wanted the pill to do that for me. 1 pill a day right before bedtime with no effort on my part in an ideal world. So I started taking that pill, I still do, every evening. About depression, the poet, the Roman poet Horace in 65 BC wrote of what he called black dog depression, as if one has a big black dog trailing behind them, always there. And when I took the pills, the black dog went away. But every now and then, I hear it barking. if I forget to do the work, I can hear that dog barking. It keeps its distance, but I can hear it. And then I remember to do the work, and the barking fades. Those of us who gather in religious communities are tempted to see depression as a spiritual problem with spiritual solutions. This is unfortunate because it has caused us to view medical intervention and psychotherapy with a degree of suspicion. While depression can't be prayed away, I do believe that its impact can be reduced by the cultivation of specific habits and life patterns which have the potential to fill our lives with meaning and happiness so we don't die before we're dead. Pills get us up to here. They level us out. They take from us the suicidal urges, the despair, the despondency that sometimes envelop our lives, but they just move us beyond that. In my experience, just as they cancel out the lowest lows, they do not provide us with the highest highs. For that, we have to do something else. In the weeks ahead, I want to talk with you about the practices that I and others have found useful. Now, bear in mind, I am not an expert. I am simply one who has struggled through the darkness of depression, was fortunate enough to find a slight and warm light by which to walk by. So share it with you. Like one blind beggar telling another beggar where to find food. I hope you find it helpful. I suspect if we were all honest, we would admit and acknowledge that this is something most of us struggle with, and that no amount of praying will take it away from us. So in the weeks ahead, as we enter what I know is for many a difficult time of year, reduced sunlight, cold, inside, mostly with people we love, but sometimes not, that depression can be a real challenge for some of us. And so that's what we'll be thinking about and talking about in the weeks ahead. I hope it doesn't depress you. I hope instead it gives you a sense of how, of the practical steps we all can take to enrich and ennoble our lives and to make us, when we wake up each morning, glad for another day.
As I listened to the message, at one point, Phil had talked about eulogies and how they paint a rosy picture. And two things came into my mind. One was I went to a celebration of life several years ago. Many of you might have been there too, but it was the loss of life was a relatively young woman who'd had a really rough life with struggles with mental health, drug addiction. She'd been homeless. Clearly, there were many people whose relationship had maybe even broken or nearly broke. She had broken with other people because of it. She had a big, loving family, though, and when she did die, and here we are at the celebration of life, I was so moved because it was so real. I was moved by what was said during it, because people were very honest about, there were no rose-colored glasses about her. It was so honest, but yet loving and sensitive and real, because there was real love there too, and you could see the heartbreak, but you could see the love, and it was so beautiful. So that is very healing to me, to see that, to witness that, because you see the opposite sometimes, just how wonderful the person was, and all that, and there's room for the darkness and the light in each of us. It's there, and the reality is they both belong, and they're both there to whatever degree the light is or the dark. They call it the shadow, I guess, your shadow self. The other thing that came to my mind was in reading the book we're reading, Women Rowing North, the author talks about a practice that she personally has incorporated into her life, and when a friend or person that she knows dies, she will write her own personal eulogy. And you can imagine, what your own personal eulogy to any person in your life would be. And she always ended with the difference that person made in her life. And I thought, that's a beautiful practice. And it could be healing too, if there was hurt. And it could be just nothing but celebratory, or all that's in between.
I recently had a dear uncle who passed, and we had a very dear friend who came to the calling, and his calling was in a Baptist church. And this dear friend told us later that about a half an hour later, he was still trembling because the last time he had been in a Baptist church was at his grandmother's funeral, or when his grandmother was living, I guess. Well, I too was raised Baptist. And as a Baptist, when something resonates with you and you can identify with it, you say, amen. Well, Phil, to your sermon, I hope this does not make you tremble, but amen.
Yes, I want to say amen to that too. When most of you know, I was raised Catholic, and are you hearing me? Yeah, okay. And when I was growing up, suicide was considered a mortal sin. How's that for irony? And the church would not bury people who committed suicide. My mother committed suicide in 1970, and that was still the belief. So I am, and I hear comments at times that still reflect that kind of thinking. And I welcome the discussion of depression, because at the time that my mom died, I can remember how little we knew about depression, and we have learned a lot in the meantime. I'm also convinced that if we had the antidepressants then that we have now, she would be alive. Well, actually, she'd be over 100 now, so not. But so thank you, Phil, and I'm with you on let's air this and let's come to a better understanding of what it is and what it's like and what can be done with it.
I started to think I should say, if all hearts are clear, and I thought, well, all hearts have been broken open. but we know we have things coming. Our final hymn is 161, Have Thine Own Way, Lord. And I was telling Phil earlier this morning, it's not one I grew up with, but it's one that I learned because of my mother-in-law. It was one that, and she was one of those people who, whatever was in your head after church, you'd sing it through the rest of the afternoon, or which ones do you stick with you? For some reason, this one stuck with her, and then I associate it with her because I think she was definitely looking to see where God was in her life. And I was thinking too with my, the image of God is in other people, that maybe while we're doing Have Thine Own Way, Lord, the Lord may be speaking to out of one of those spaces today. So 161, stand as you are able.
We try always to make this space a place of healing and a place of growth for those who participate. If you know someone in your life, a family member or a friend who struggles with this issue, this might be a good time to invite them into this space. It comes with a promise. If Mark Striedelmeyer shows up next Sunday with a friend, we do not say, "Hello, Mark, and this must be your depressed friend."
It's also a great Sunday to do it because Phil's not speaking.
That's a given. So we extend to them what we extend to all: a warm greeting, space in our hearts, a loving and open spirit, knowing that in good time, that is what heals us all. Amen. Turn and greet friends. Thank you.